X-Men 97 Season 1 represented everything that I loved about the original animated series. But did Season 2 come close, or fall short? Welcome back, everyone. Today we're here to talk about X-Men 97 Season 2. The entire season is now done, and the question remains, what did we think about it? I will be discussing my thoughts on this season, the stuff that I liked, the stuff that I feel could use some work. But before we get into that, I would love to know from you, what do you love most about the animated series? Why is it something that you cherish? I would love to hear more about your experiences with it and your thoughts, because we're going to be talking about that a lot in this review. I want to start off by saying the beginning of this season was so absolutely strong. I mean, when I think back to the first 4 episodes of this show and the fact that we got a multi-episode premiere, I think that is actually insane, because in my opinion, we peaked all the way back in episode 4. In terms of the story, in terms of the emotional impact, I definitely feel as though episode 4 was the most powerful that we had this season. We're also talking about the animation in this episode. Everything just felt like it was at a different scale in terms of the quality. And that is the quality that I was used to with X-Men 97, which of course was established by season 1. I think they set the bar pretty high with season 1. And the only sad thing for me really with episode 4 being that great is that then the rest of the episodes feel like they peter off a little bit. Now, that's not to say that there isn't anything to love about those later episodes, because there are still a lot of moments that I enjoyed, and we're going to talk about the characters in this and the amazing voice cast. But overall, I feel the story just meandered, and then it came back around in a sort of rushed way. And I think when we talk about X-Men 97 Season 2, one of the issues I really have here with this season is the pacing. Let's think back even to what we're doing with Apocalypse in this season. At the beginning of the season, we're establishing Apocalypse is this terrifying guy, to the point that Kang even implies, as Rant, that Apocalypse is inevitable. In fact, I don't think he implies that. He just says that. You can't defeat Apocalypse because Apocalypse always wins. And Kang tries to make a deal with Charles Xavier, saying to Charles, the only way that you'll be able to beat this guy is if you team up with me, Rant. Which is really wild when you think that Rant is one of Kang's personas. And Kang is known for being a pretty terrifying villain, not usually a person you'd want to team up with as a hero. So when we consider Apocalypse comes out of the gate established as this unbeatable force, and then we take a look at the finale and how we actually dealt with this threat, I feel as though there is a bit of a war happening in the season. We have Apocalypse, who exists throughout time on 3 separate timelines and is really tough to beat. This is a character that you should be intimidated by. This is a character that killed Magneto. And yet when we have Apocalypse reveal himself later on in the season and come back around as Gampocalypse, none of the threats that we were promised at the beginning are really delivered upon. So we set the stakes really high, and then there's not a lot of follow through in the season. When it comes to how we used our time as well, I think that's a little questionable in certain episodes. Don't get me wrong, here I am in my Wolverine dress. I am a big Wolverine fan, and I love me a Wolverine standalone episode. And to be honest, I did enjoy the Wolverine episode this season, but when we look at what that story is in connection to the greater works of everything else that's going on in season 2, it doesn't feel like it's a very impactful episode. And that's not to say that we can't still have fun side stories going on that are not directly connected to the main plot. But with season 1, when we went off on a tangent, like let's say with what was going on with Jubilee, that still had an impact on her character and her development throughout the entire season. So even though there is a standalone sort of Jubilee story in there, and there's also some standalone Storm stuff that we have going on in season 1, all of that still connects back to these characters, what they're going through throughout the entire main plot of the show, and how we see them grow and evolve. With Wolverine, we talk about this depth of the character, the interesting element of Wolverine feeling that because he doesn't have his adamantium, he's not actually useful to the team, and this idea of Wolverine seeing himself as no better than a weapon. I think that is a really powerful element of the character that you can explore that is supported by a lot of comic book stories involving Wolverine. It's a journey that I've been down with Logan many times and something that I love to explore as a Wolverine fan. Now, what we did with that episode is we kind of open up the window or the door to that possibility. We could be exploring what does Wolverine seeing himself only as a weapon do for the character as it applies to the main plot. How does that change him as he's going through all of this other stuff that's happening where mutants are fighting mutants? How does it affect him and Morph's relationship after the episode with Wolverine? But we don't do any of that. We don't use anything that we're building in that standalone episode. And that is where I feel that episode fell flat. It just didn't have as much impact. And with Wolverine, it's crazy to think that I feel as though he has more screen time in season 2, and yet he is less impactful in terms of what we get even for his character development. I feel we got more character development for him in season 1, and in season 1, he really is kind of on the sidelines in comparison to what we're used to as Wolverine fans, where he is a character that often gets the spotlight. This season, we get the spotlight, but there's not a lot of substance behind that. Now, speaking on the opposite side of the spectrum, we do have an episode that I think is one of the best episodes of the season, especially in the later season element, because the strong stuff for me really was at the front, but Nightcrawler gets his own episode, and this is a better use of a standalone story where we are still exploring Nightcrawler, his philosophies, his relationship with Graydon Creed, and going on this mission to try and save his brother from the Acolytes. And in doing that, there is much that Kurt has to explore within himself, and that we get to see more of this character on display in a standalone episode. Technically, this story also does connect a little bit more to what's going on in the main plot, but not that much more, to be honest. But Nightcrawler and what we explore in that episode, the themes, this idea of faith and the power of believing in something bigger than yourself, and just how much that can change the world to have those ideals. All of that is very important to season 2 and the overarching themes that we saw this season, which I think is a lot about faith. When you look at each episode, there's an element of questioning whether or not these characters believe in themselves, how they feel about each other, believing in teams, believing in people to be better, and how that affects us when we don't believe in people or we do. And I think that the overall themes coming together in that way makes the Nightcrawler episode pop even more. And in my opinion, that episode is an example of how you do a standalone story, have it be about character, and still have it be impactful into the overall season, the main story that we're building. And Nightcrawler was such an important character this season, so to showcase that, to do that work, is very relevant because it helps you to understand why Nightcrawler makes the decision he does at the end of the season. So that's how you do it right. So it's weird because clearly we know how to do that, and yet not all episodes have that level of impact. Now, could this also be because we have too many X-Men this season? Yes, I think that is definitely a problem. Now, that being said, I of course was very excited to have more X-Men. I did a video where I talked about just all of the X-Men that we were seeing and was asking, is it too many X-Men? And there were a lot of people in the comments that interpreted that as me saying there's just too many X-Men, like I was pulling a Scarlet Witch on everyone here and I'm about to say like no more mutants. I didn't mean in terms of comics and in existence in the world of the Marvel multiverse or Marvel universe, there are too many X-Men. I just meant for one season of a show, that's a lot of X-Men to try to focus on all of them and make it feel meaningful. And I think that is where we struggled in this season. We have a lot of characters, but we have Polaris is doing some stuff, Danger's introduced and wrapped up in one episode, so that we just blew right past that. X-Men does abbreviate things in the animated series, but that, even for me, felt a bit rushed. I mean, we're dealing with Wolverine getting his adamantium back. We're dealing with X-Factor. We're dealing with X-Force. We've got Cable. Psylocke is here doing things. So there's a lot of characters at play, and we're also sort of soft introducing through cameos a lot of Generation X, a different era of mutants that's coming in, these younger kids that are coming in. There is a lot going on in this season in terms of just how many characters we have. And this was something I was concerned about when they first told us they were going to do that we just wouldn't have enough time to properly showcase everyone. And 9 episodes is simply not enough time in general, but especially if you want to do this much. And it makes me wonder if this also connects back to another problem that we might be seeing with this season, as we did have a change of our creative team behind the scenes. I covered it a lot in the previous few years when there was more news to actually cover on this, but Bo DeMeo was the creator and the head writer, no longer there. And while some of that stuff is clearly being used, as Bo DeMeo is credited, Bo DeMeo is not in the room, and there's a lot of other people coming in to also work on this show. And that's not to say that there wasn't people there before, because it was always a whole team, but we've changed up some of the team, and I do feel as though a lot of producers, it feels like there's a lot of producers coming in having opinions on things. It feels overproduced to me. And our producer lineup didn't change that much, but it just feels like studio meddling a little bit. Like they had an idea of what they needed from this for commercialization purposes, and that maybe got in the way of giving us a truly realized story. So maybe too many cooks in the kitchen, and definitely too many X-Men, I think, for 9 episodes for season 2. 9 episodes is just, it's not enough time. Now, when we're talking about the creative changeover as well, there are a lot of people that are trying to figure out, like, where did this season go wrong in terms of some of the storytelling and some of the writing, which I think later in the season is a bit weaker, I agree. And Matthew Chauncey is going to be the person who's going to be overtaking in season 3. They were also someone that was credited as working on season 2, but when referred to about that and people were complaining to Matthew Chauncey about this, they responded with, "No, I didn't." So I don't really know. To be fair, I don't see them credited as head writer or as an executive producer, but they are credited on IMDb as being a consulting producer. So to say you didn't have anything to do with season 2, I don't know. Maybe they just meant I'm not technically in these roles on season 2. Season 3 is going to be more of Matthew Chauncey's ex-baby, but what will happen with that, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know how involved they were on season 2, because I'm seeing these conflicting reports where they're saying no and other people are saying they were super involved in this. But what I will say is Matthew Chauncey is someone that also worked on What If, and I am now a little nervous that that might be where we're kind of headed in terms of our season 3. What If season 3 was pretty rough, if you've seen my reviews on that. It was pretty rough for me. So hopefully that is not what's going to happen, and I want to have some faith, and I want to believe that Matthew Chauncey has a really great story to tell in season 3. So fingers crossed. I will definitely be back either way. It was still a good season. I didn't hate this season or anything like that. I had a fun time. I enjoyed my time. I will be sad to be waiting for season 3, and I will be back for season 3. But I can't deny that I am a little nervous. Now, you know who didn't let me down this season? I think our voice actors have all been absolutely amazing. Whether we're talking about returning cast or newly added cast members, I think everyone did such a great job this season. The voice acting was still phenomenal, and even the characters in terms of how they speak and interact with each other, all of that still felt accurate to me. I didn't think anyone was playing against what the character would do or say. it felt true to form in terms of who these characters are and what I think makes them all special. Did we get as great of a showcase of everybody's abilities and everybody's character and what makes them who they are? Not as much, but no one was acting oddly this season. I think everything was still in line. So that was good. Granted, I am also worried when it comes to adaptations of the comics moving forward. I think we might be leaving the 90s, which is a little weird for a show that is called X-Men 97. But we did in season 1 see some Millennium stories integrated, and I think that worked quite well. So I'm hoping in season 3 it will still be a good blend of 90s and Millennium, but there's just so many signs in season 2 that we are really going to be leaving the 90s behind and moving into a new era. There is a lot more pieces on the board at play that come from that era. Characters, having a new president, potentially Graydon Creed, if we had our last election in the 90s in 1996, because this show is 1997, then Graydon Creed's election, based on our own history, would have happened in the year 2000, if we're following just regular history, which means that Graydon Creed's presidency will effectively be moving us from 1999 to 2000. It's a theory, and I talk about it in my theories video, but it's possible. I do get the sense that there will be even more Millennium stuff in the future. Granted, there is a lot of amazing stuff to explore in the aughts in terms of comic history, so still great stories to mine from that era, but there's so much in the 90s we still haven't touched on. So that's what makes me nervous. Watching season 2 made me want to go back and relive the magic of season 1. And I will probably be going back and rewatching it because this season made me nostalgic for what we had before. I can see the potential still there, but it's missing a little bit of the magic for me. And I really hope we can get back on track with what has always made X-Men the animated series so special for me, which is really taking that inspiration from the comic stories, lifting them off the page and bringing them to life in a animated world where things are a little bit more abbreviated, but we're still hitting those major beats. This is a show that felt, when I was younger, that it was coming from a group of people who really were passionate about those stories. It made me want to read comics. It's how I got into comics. And then when I started reading comics and seeing these stories unfold in the books and seeing just how much more there was, it really is a great way to bring you into that world, to bring you into those stories, and to bring you into more books. And in a world where I'm very concerned about our future in terms of the written word, in terms of literacy, I think it's powerful to have shows like this that can bring more people to books and create more regular readers just among us. Comics is this really special and unique place where we get to see worlds blended, the world of the fully written like novel and the world of film, because we have imagery married with words and it allows a story to impact you in just a unique and different way. And so I feel having a show like X-Men the Animated Series that honors a lot of those comic book stories is really special. It's really something that can bring people to a medium, to a book that they maybe never would have thought to pick up before. And I'd love to see this show continue to do that for people. So hopefully in season 3, there'll be even more comic-inspired stories that we will all get to go back to and revisit and re-explore, and that some people may even find through the show. But with season 2, I do feel we got a little loosey-goosey. I do feel that the adaptations became a lot more loose as we went through the season, and so I am a bit nervous that we might just go completely off script and focus on telling our own story as opposed to honoring the stories that have come before, which is the whole reason that I think X-Men the Animated Series really was successful in the first place. Definitely is a big part of the reason that I think a lot of us loved X-Men 97. I know for me, that's a big part of the reason why I loved season 1. So that's really all I have about this one. I mean, it was a little bit of a mixed bag for me, I can't deny, but still a really solid season, I think. It could be improved, and hopefully I'll see that in season 3, but I'm nervous. I'm gonna be honest with you all. I am a little nervous. So let me know your thoughts on this season down in the comments below. I'll see you down there. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video and listen to my thoughts and check out my channel. And I hope that you have enjoyed your time here with me. We're going to be talking about more X-Men stuff down the line. I got lots of comics that I'm going to be reading that I'm excited to be discussing. So stay tuned for all of that. If you're not already subscribed, consider hitting that subscribe button. And hopefully I'll see you in a future video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. And until then, friends, stay nerdy. Bye. And if you love when I talk about comics, I love to do it. And we'll be doing even more of it here. If you need more right now, click here next.